Good morning. As Jim said, my name is Vaughn Killeen. I'm the former Ada County Sheriff, and I'm here to support Tom Arkoosh in his bid for Idaho Attorney General. Tom Arkoosh has been a county prosecutor and has had 4 decades of successful law practice in practically every field of law in Idaho. He's pledged to continue maintaining a strong working relationship with law enforcement, and which has existed over the past decades. Those bonds keep Idaho citizens safe from criminal conduct. We are concerned those bonds could be damaged and weakened if his opponent were to take control of this important office. I was dismayed when Tom's opponent, Raul Labrador, who when in Congress wrote the U.S. Attorney General twice in 2017 seeking favorable treatment of Ammon Bundy and several militia members involved in the 2014 standoff with law enforcement officers at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada. It's inappropriate for a member of the legislative branch of government to interject into an ongoing criminal prosecution. To do so is an affront to the rule of law. It raises concerns about how he would run the AG's office. Supporting Tom is an easy choice because he doesn't place politics over the Constitution. On the other hand, Labrador criticized the outgoing AG for not supporting unconstitutional laws. Against the advice of the former AG, several legislative proposals were passed into law and ultimately challenged in the courts. The courts found them to be unconstitutional, just as the outgoing AG said they would be, and Idaho was ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money in penalties in their unsuccessful bid to defend unconstitutional laws. Tom's opponent took an extreme position, but extremism is not an ally of democracy. Ideologues hurt our ability to govern. There's just too much of that in our political environment today, and we don't want that in our next Attorney General. Tom will be an advocate for the Constitution and will address issues on their legal merits, not partisan philosophy. A person's character is defined on how they react under adversity, and too many leaders today fail the test of integrity and honesty. I was in law enforcement for over 40 years, and 20 years of that time I was the elected Republican Sheriff of Ada County. Over those years, I learned a lot about human nature, why some people can't deal with the truth and others seek power at all costs. I believe I can recognize a person of good character by their deeds and their care for the truth. Tom Arkoosh is that kind of person, and I support him for Idaho's next Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaughn. Our next speaker is Gary Raney, also a former Ada County Sheriff and a distinguished law enforcement officer. Gary?
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everybody. As Jim said, my name is Gary Raney. I was the Ada County Sheriff from 2005 to 2015, following my predecessor, Sheriff Killeen. There are 4 qualities that Tom has that Raul Labrador doesn't have, and those are very important. First, an experienced prosecutor, somebody who understands the criminal justice system and knows how to bring justice for victims in the state of Idaho. Second, Tom respects the rule of law. And as Sheriff Killeen just said so eloquently, Raul Labrador has shown that he does not respect the rule of law, that he cares more about his own agenda than really the right and wrong for the citizens of Idaho. Third, the Attorney General should have the support and work closely with Idaho law enforcement officers. Raul Labrador has not. When I was the Ada County Sheriff, Raul Labrador was pushing a bill through Congress to take away some of the demilitarized equipment from the federal government that was going to local agencies. Now, there was some sensationalism that this was rocket launchers and grenades and all of that. It wasn't. It was simple things like sleeping bags and Kevlar helmets and things that, particularly in rural Idaho, with cash-strapped budgets, were really assisting them. Raul Labrador came to the Idaho Sheriffs Association. We explained the value of this program. It was called the 1033 program. And he listened, and he didn't care, and he walked out the door and continued to push that agenda, which thankfully was unsuccessful. The fourth thing is we need somebody who is ethical and will make objective decisions based on what is right and wrong in the law. The Attorney General is not a legislator. The Attorney General should not pass laws. The Attorney General should not have an agenda. The Attorney General should follow the law based on what's right and wrong for the citizens of Idaho. Tom Arkoosh is the guy who is the prosecutor, who will respect the rule of law, who has the support of law enforcement, and will do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Our next speaker is Mike Dillon, who was supervising agent for the FBI here in Idaho, chief investigator for the Attorney General's office under Lawrence Lawston for 9 years, and then went on to be head of professionalism at the Post Academy. Mike?
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. I've got a short statement to read. The Attorney General must have an understanding of law enforcement needs and act as advocate for law enforcement officers. As chief investigator for the AG's office for 9 years under Lawrence Lawston, our office worked hard to support the work of law enforcement officers on the front line. I know both candidates for AG and can tell you that Tom Arkoosh is head and shoulders above his opponent in every way. Qualifications, experience, and respect for law. I would like to just close by reiterating what's been said already. Tom is a giant of integrity. He is committed to the rule of law for every Idahoan. I repeat, he's committed to the rule of law for every Idahoan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We had some of our expected speakers that got caught up in very important business like elk hunting, catching a very serious bug, and so on. But we've got one more speaker who is a distinguished law enforcement officer, originated from Twin Falls, was chief of police in Pocatello, and then U.S. Marshal for Idaho, right over in the federal building. Jim Benham.
Good morning. In 1967, I took the oath of office as a patrol officer in the city of Pocatello. One of the things that I swore to do was to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and to support the citizens who live here. And one of the things I've tried to do for 48 years of my life as a police officer is that. The man, Tom Arkoosh, is one of the people in the U.S. Marshal's office. I dealt with him I don't know how many times in the courts of law. I've probably seen him in a court of law more than anybody else has here. Tom is a good guy. All the years in the marshal's office, we dealt with Tom. We never had an issue of him wanting personal favors from the marshal service because, I have another client, so I need to be in my office. That's not the way the system works, and this man never asked me to do that. His opponent did many times, always looking for something for himself. I am going to support Tom Arkoosh. I guarantee you my wife is going to support him. And the rest of the people that I know, I've spoken to a lot of people in the last several weeks about Tom, and I think people have some feeling that I know what I'm talking about. I've been in the courts before, and for that reason I am supporting Tom, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jim alluded to something that is really important. When the courts say what the law is, it is essential that every attorney general across the state, or the U.S., and law enforcement at every level acknowledge the law as the court stated and follow that law. We had a riot at the United States Capitol on January 6th, just following the presidential election. The courts in about 60 cases that had been brought about the election were asked whether that election was fair and in accordance with law. Those courts unanimously ruled that there was no problem with the election, that the election was fair, honest, and should be observed. Many people decided that they could take the law into their own hands. And as a result of that, 140 law enforcement officers at the Capitol were injured. They were injured because people thought they could forge their own path in the law, that they could take the law into their own hands. Raul Labrador has said in the debate on October 3rd that the election was stolen in plain sight. There's a person who will not follow the law, who will not observe what the courts say the law is, and that is extremely dangerous to our nation and to the state of Idaho. If we hope to be able to protect our law enforcement officers so that they can protect us, we need to follow the law. And my challenge to Mr. Labrador is either put up or shut up. Give us the proof or remain silent and let law enforcement do their job. Don't endanger them by urging people, militias and individuals, to take the law into their own hands. I know a person who understands the law and will follow the law. And I think this person will do a fine job as Attorney General for the state of law, helping law enforcement, keeping people safe, and that is Tom Arkoosh. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jim. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank these men behind me. I counted up, there's well over 100 years of law enforcement experience here, and I think that we should thank them. What Justice Jones doesn't know is my very first law job was between my second and third year of law school. I was given a limited license, and I prosecuted all of the misdemeanors over in Canyon County. And I was in trial every day prosecuting misdemeanors. Now today I'm guessing there's probably 5 lawyers over there doing that job because of the size of Canyon County today. But I hope it isn't just a crime wave. I'm sure it's the size of the county. Very shortly after that, I was a Gem County prosecuting attorney after working for the federal courts. And I had the good fortune to work with these people and other people in law enforcement during my career. I commit to them as Attorney General. I will advocate for adequate funding, for investigative resources, and high quality representation in our courts to keep Idaho's streets crime-free. Law enforcement will never have to wonder whose side I'm on. From some of the comments you've heard today, I think they do wonder whose side my opponent really is on. My priorities are, first, illicit drugs. Fentanyl is a huge problem in our state. I would like to eliminate the threat of armed militant groups. They're not only a law enforcement problem, I think they're a societal problem. And I would like to continue to punish these large corporations, as my predecessor has in his Consumer Protection Division, for tobacco, opioid, vaping, and the like. I would point out that my predecessor has collected during his career over $750 million in the last 20 years from people who are harming the health of the state of Idaho. Excuse me. My opponent, as Justice Jones pointed out, I think has a twisted view of the law of this land. He criticized Lawrence Wasden for not joining the Attorney General of Texas in joining a suit it was an original filing in front of the Supreme Court to force other states to denounce the election. That's how strongly he feels about not observing federalism and the rule of law. All of the attorney generals who signed that brief without facts to support them or law to back them up are facing disciplinary actions in front of their bars. And I promise you that I will not file a pleading that doesn't have facts to back it up or the law to support it. I think anyone who signed that brief or who advocated signing that brief is unfit for public office. To one of my supporters, when he asked me, "What is your commitment to law enforcement?" I've agreed with him that my commitment is to be firm but fair, and to carry out that commitment without fear or favor. And so, gentlemen, that's my commitment to your successors and my commitment to the people of the state of Idaho. Thank you all very much for coming.